how many Iranians are in the country that are in sleeper cells trying to do bad to America right now?
Well, look, you and I have talked about this many times. I said the last 4 years, my biggest concern was this open border was the biggest national security vulnerability this country's ever seen. So I pulled numbers this morning just from a CBP under Joe Biden. There was 1,272 nationals of Iran released in the country between OFO and the Border Patrol.
A startling assessment of just how open our borders were during the Biden administration, especially now as the Trump administration ramps up its monitoring of Iran-backed sleeper cells. More than 400 terrorism-related encounters occurred at our borders during the Biden administration. That includes hundreds of foreigners on the U.S. terrorist watch list encountered while trying to enter the country illegally under the Biden administration, and millions of others seen on surveillance cameras getting away. Joining us is the U.S. Ambassador to NATO, Matt Whitaker. Ambassador, thank you so much for joining us. Look, here on the homeland, concerned about these sleeper cells, and you have Iran, who's been pummeled. I mean, their nuclear sites have been dismantled. But from the perspective of NATO, how do we assess what's happening in Iran right now, what their attitude and approach is, and how it relates to these sleeper cells that I think a lot of national security experts are quite concerned about?
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously a very dangerous world, Jason, and I think, President Trump as a peacemaker has made it safer. But at the same time, we're still dealing with a lot of the consequences of 4 years of Joe Biden, including a porous border where not only did we have, as Tom Homan points out, over 1,200 Iranian nationals that came into our country that we know of, but you had over 1 million known gotaways that we have no idea who they are, where they went. And that's a real challenge. But at the same time, President Trump has been very clear about his policy towards Iran, that they cannot have a nuclear weapon. And they're at a decision point. They should move forward and seek peace. The Israelis have completely decimated their proxy groups, whether it's Hamas or Hezbollah or the Houthis, and at the same, we've helped them as a country with both our work in the Red Sea against the Houthis and with the complete obliteration that we did with the bunker busters on their nuclear program. And so, Iran should come to the table and should sue for peace and should make a peace deal with the United States, with Israel, and just say no more. We want to be in the world where people seek prosperity and a bright future for their citizens. So, Jason, I think right now this puts a lot of pressure on our law enforcement, puts a lot of pressure on DOJ and the FBI to be right 100% of the time and seek out these sleeper cells and to make sure that they can't activate.
Well, you were the former acting attorney general. You have that interesting perspective. But my understanding is, Ambassador, that the supreme leader there in Iran, for the first time, we've actually seen him on camera since the devastating attack on the nuclear sites. What should we glean from that? And what in the short term and long term, what are we worried about here?
Yeah, well, it's coming from a place of weakness. The supreme, Ayatollah, needs to show his face, needs to demonstrate that he's still in charge. But at the same time, he's been militarily completely decimated. His nuclear program has been obliterated, and he's in a position of weakness right now, and he's just trying to hold together his power because, the 90+ million Iranian citizens want a better life. They don't want this war and conflict that he has fomented. It was kind of this policy of no war and no peace, where they had these proxy groups, and Israel put an end to a lot of that, took out their air defenses. And this is an interesting thing that's going on right now worldwide, is that air defenses are at a premium, they're low availability, and the United States, having just passed this one big beautiful bill, demonstrates through the this acceleration of the Golden Dome air defense and missile defense program, that ultimately we get it, and we're going to continue to be the world's preeminent superpower, and we will protect ourselves and our citizens.
And let me shift gears here, Ambassador. Give us the latest update. Ukraine, Russia's been bombarding the Ukrainians with drones. What's the latest there? What is the posture of the United States, and what involvement, if any, are we going to take in this war?
Yeah, well, on the one hand, President Trump, the ultimate peacemaker, has made the world safer through the peace deals between Rwanda and the Congo, India, Pakistan, Israel, and Iran, with the end of the 12-day war. But at the same time, this Ukraine-Russia situation, President Trump wants a peace. He wants a ceasefire. But Vladimir Putin, who he talked to a couple days ago, doesn't seem to want to come to the table and actually negotiate. It appears that Zelensky does. I was in the room last week in The Hague where President Trump and Volodymyr Zelensky sat down and talked about this. But at the same time, it's one thing to attack militaries, and we have thousands of people every week dying on the battlefield. But, Vladimir Putin is now attacking major cities like Odessa and Kyiv. And I think that is a crossing the line. And I think President Trump has told Vladimir Putin that attacking citizens is just not something that you can do legitimately. And so, President Trump wants peace. He wants to bring this to an end. But at the same time, in order to have peace, both sides have to come to the table and be willing to compromise, be willing to negotiate, and be willing to end the killing, because ultimately that's what needs to happen.
U.S. Ambassador to NATO, Matthew Whitaker, thank you so much for joining us on Sunday Morning Futures.
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.